Summer 1933. Adolf Hitler, Führer of the Third Reich, was dictator of Germany. 15 years earlier, Adolf Hitler was a corporal in the German army, bitter, frustrated, and unknown. November 1918. World War I was over. The Imperial German army, once the most powerful in Europe, had been defeated. To many Germans, defeat meant humiliation, chaos, and confusion. For the war's end did not bring peace. It brought civil war. Though a democratic republic had been declared, left-wing revolutionaries attempted to seize power in several cities from Munich to Berlin. Militant right-wing units known as the Freikorps volunteered to battle with the leftists. By the spring of 1919, troops of the new Weimar Republic had taken control. Though there would be future attempts at revolution, for a time, order had been restored. Meanwhile, outside Paris at the Palace of Versailles, leaders of France, Great Britain, and the United States were meeting with delegates of the new German government to conclude a formal end to World War I. The Treaty of Versailles required Germany to surrender significant territories and pay vast war debts. To many Germans, the treaty seemed motivated by revenge. Adolf Hitler believed Germany had been stabbed in the back, betrayed by revolutionaries, by Marxists and Jews. In the early 20s, many who shared these views were joining a new and militant party of the right, called the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis. Among the first to join the Nazis was Adolf Hitler, who soon became the party's leader. A charismatic personality, he was able to articulate both popular frustration and a radical agenda for social change. In 1922, many Germans were standing in breadlines. Severe inflation had left the money worthless. Some even used it as wallpaper. Artist Kate Korwitz expressed her concern in simple human terms. Germany's children are starving. Soup kitchens were set up in cities across Germany. The economic crisis led to demonstrations. Communists were marching in the streets against the injustices of capitalism and against war. Krieg dem Kriege, war against war, read the signs which appeared at rallies by parties of the left. Death to Marxism, read the signs in Nazi demonstrations. They played on fears of future revolution. By 1923, the Nazi Party had more than 50,000 members. Emboldened by their growing strength, Hitler and his stormtroops launched a coup in Munich, hoping to start a revolution to overthrow the democratic Weimar government. The coup failed, but in the trial which followed, Hitler's outspoken defense enlarged his audience and made him a national figure. Though convicted of treason, he was given only a 5-year sentence. While in prison, Hitler wrote a book which would make him famous. It outlined his vision of Germany's future, a future without Jews and communists. Soon after his release, the book was published. It was called Mein Kampf, My Struggle. To the average German in 1925, Adolf Hitler's message had little appeal. Economic conditions had improved, and though Nazi stormtroops could be seen on the streets, especially during election campaigns, few Germans paid much attention to Hitler and his angry rantings. A nation yearning for stability and peace turned not to Hitler, but to Hindenburg. A legendary hero of the First World War, General Paul von Hindenburg was elected president in 1925. His promise to uphold the democratic constitution strengthened public confidence in the young German Republic. by the mid-20s, the future looked more promising. People could relax, as they did in Berlin's Kroll Gardens. Berlin was among the most cosmopolitan of cities. During the Weimar years, its writers, artists, and intellectuals created a culture of unparalleled vitality. The Nazis saw it as degenerate. To Germans frightened by the modern age and uncertain of the future, the Nazis offered refuge. Many were attracted by the party's emphasis on nationalism and strong authority. More than 15,000 marched through Nuremberg on Party Day in 1927. The Nazis borrowed the strong right-arm salute from Mussolini and the Italian fascists. It quickly became their own. The Nazis were well organized. District leaders were essential to the party's growth. So too was propaganda. The Völkischer Beobachter was the Nazi party newspaper. After Hitler's abortive coup, the paper and the party were banned. By 1927, both were again legalized. To those who joined the stormtroops, the party provided an identity and an outlet for frustration. Brown shirts and swastikas were slowly spreading across Germany. The power of the growing Nazi party, however, would be determined by the votes of ordinary people. And it was to them that the Nazi message was principally addressed. In 1929, many Germans were again standing in bread lines and looking for work. The stock market collapse led to a worldwide economic depression. Once again, unemployment, hunger, and despair were fuel to the parties of both left and right. The parties of the left were weakened by division. German communists competed with socialists for the votes of the German working class. But their real enemies were the capitalists, the middle-class politicians, and the Nazis. The Social Democrats were the largest party in Germany. Despite their strength, they were incapable of sustained leadership. Their failure to unite the parties of the left was a weakness the Nazis would exploit. In the elections of the early 30s, the socialists condemned the Nazis as fascists. Vote no, campaigned the socialists. For many Germans confused by the conflicts of an unsettled era, Nazi propaganda had great appeal. The message was simple and direct. The causes of Germany's problems were the communists, the Jews, and the hated Versailles Treaty. However ominous the message, it was delivered with a certainty that seemed to offer hope. Without effective coalitions between political parties, elected leaders could not govern. Election campaigns were frequent and violent. Gangs of Nazi thugs clashed with communists in the days before the Reichstag election of 1932. 99 people were killed in the streets. The government seemed incapable of action.
The German people desire nothing more than to live in peace in order to turn...
The German chancellor was a wealthy conservative, Franz von Papen. Like his predecessors, von Papen was an ineffective leader. The country was adrift. Without political consensus, the Reichstag had almost ceased to function by 1932. The government was now ruled not by laws, but by emergency decrees issued by the aging President Hindenburg. In the spring of 1932, Hitler announced that he would run for president against Hindenburg. Hitler campaigned extensively, repeating the Nazi message, "Germany, awake! Hitler is your last hope." When neither Hitler nor Hindenburg won a clear majority, a runoff election was announced. The Nazis called the second campaign Hitler over Germany. With only a week to campaign, the Nazis chartered a plane from Lufthansa to carry Hitler from one election rally to the next. President Hindenburg made one radio address. Hitler spoke to rallies in 21 cities. The aerial campaign created a sensation. To audiences hungering for leadership, Hitler's promises of bread and work and a Germany restored to greatness were persuasive.
14 Jahre lang haben diese Partei die deutsche Freiheit vergewaltigt, den deutschen Menschen geknebelt und geschlagen. 2 oder 3 Monate vergangen sind, wird euer Terror beseitigt sein. Verwahren wir das Rasenrecht.
Hitler was defeated in the runoff election, but his power and popularity continued to increase, especially after the Reichstag election in the summer of 1932. Again, no party won an absolute majority, but the Nazis now held more than a third of the seats. For the first time, the Nazi delegates outnumbered those of any other party, left or right. The Nazi victories in the Reichstag elections made it even more difficult for Chancellor von Papen to govern. Hindenburg disliked Hitler, but within months the aging president was persuaded that political stability required naming the Nazi leader Chancellor. His advisors assured him that Hitler could be controlled. At the end of January 1933, President Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler, the former army corporal, Chancellor of Germany. The news of Hitler's appointment led to celebrations in cities across Germany. In Berlin, Nazi stormtroops held a torchlight parade through the streets. Hitler watched in triumph from the windows of the Chancellor. Von Papen remained vice-chancellor in the new cabinet, but Hitler would soon maneuver to eliminate all but Nazis from this coalition government. Those who argued that Hitler would become more moderate once in power were wrong.
Deutschland ist nun erwacht. Die Macht haben wir nun in Deutschland gewonnen. Nun gilt es, das deutsche Volk zu gewinnen.
Germany has awakened, Hitler proclaimed. We have won power. Now we must win the people. Within weeks, all opposition parties were banned, their leaders imprisoned. And Hitler launched a brutal campaign of terror to consolidate his power. By the summer of 1933, Adolf Hitler was master of Germany.